Okay.
Good afternoon,
Yep,
everyone. Good afternoon, Lieutenant Governor Bysiewicz and Mayor Elliker. And thank you so much for joining us in our first ever Census Day live stream kickoff event. This is a very challenging time for all of us, and I know that you all are have very busy schedules right now. So we really appreciate that you're taking the time to be part of this event. We are hoping that this April 1st event would be the beginning of a month-long effort, a month-long outreach effort online and via social media to really encourage all New Haveners to participate in this very important census. And so, you know, we are looking forward to hearing your comments and your remarks for all of New Haven. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Keith, for organizing and getting folks together. It's hard to believe that this is, I think we had no idea a month ago that this is how we would be doing outreach on the census. And it's certainly a crazy time for all of us and a very concerning time for many people in the community. I've been very grateful to the governor and the lieutenant governor for the leadership during this time, and to our team in City Hall that's working around the clock to prepare for what we're starting to experience now in the spike in COVID cases. This is a really tough time for us to be doing outreach around the census. There's understandably a lot of focus on other issues, but it's also more challenging because it's more difficult for us to do the traditional type of outreach that we're so accustomed to using, in particular in New Haven, because we have a lively door knocking crew that goes around the city getting the word out about everything from elections and politics to other important issues in the community. And so I'm grateful that your team is trying to work on creative ways to get out the word about the census. I understand from the numbers that New Haven is doing okay as far as our response rate goes in comparison to some of the other large cities, but that we still have a lot of work to do. And so I'm very hopeful that people will understand just why it's so important for everyone to quickly respond to the census now, rather than waiting for a longer period of time, because it helps us focus our efforts on folks that have not responded yet. And it ensures that we get the most accurate count. Obviously, communities like New Haven, it can be much more challenging for us to get a fully accurate count. We have residents that are undocumented. We have a lot of residents that may not have access to the internet. And so for those folks that are able to respond, it's so important that they do, so we can make sure that that everyone gets counted well. I just want to, before I pass on to the Lieutenant Governor, say that I am impressed that we're able to be working so hard on this at the same time that you're juggling everything else at the state level. As always, we're really grateful for all of your support and effort. And we'll continue to do anything that we can to work as a team to make sure that we get the most accurate count. So I'll hand it over to you, Lieutenant Governor.
Mayor, thank you so much for your leadership. The governor and I have been very proud to work with you since even before you got inaugurated through your transition. And you're so right. It's a very challenging time, but there couldn't be a more important time to fill out the census, because I think the COVID-19 public health crisis has really put a fine point on how important the census is to critical funding for hospitals. State disaster relief is based on how many people live in each of our cities and towns in Connecticut. Medicare and Medicaid funding are also key to population. And in fact, there are more than 55 federal programs that are really important to New Haven and to our state, and those include SNAP, Head Start, the federal school lunch programs, community block grants, highway funding, and so many more. And so we are working really hard to get the census done, even though there were other things going on. But the good news is that we're able to multitask. And I think the challenge for the 2020 census is, how can we encourage those people in each of our personal networks, our business, our professional networks, our neighborhoods, our communities, our faith groups, to use social media or mechanisms that are not face-to-face. Mayor, you were talking about some of the usual traditional ways that we get people involved in the census. And I think a lot of our complete count committees prior to COVID-19 striking us in Connecticut were thinking that they would get the message out at parades, at large community events, at festivals. And now we aren't having those kinds of gatherings. They're put on hold for a while. So we really need to focus on what are the ways that we can get the message out. And so I'm going to give you some examples of creative ways that organizations have been utilizing to get the message out. So email. Our chambers of commerce across the state have extensive email lists, and we've asked them to use those email lists to get the message out. We've had organizations using texting programs. Also, there are all these different social media venues, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Our office has created a census website for the state of Connecticut so that towns can get their creative ideas out there. And we have 156 of our municipalities have actually created complete count committees like New Haven. And I want to give kudos to New Haven, because you've been really at the forefront. Mike Piscatelli and all the organizations and agencies that have been working with you, Mayor, have been doing a really great job. So I want to give a couple of examples of creativity. So in New London, the school system has been giving flyers on the census and how to fill it out with their grab and go lunch and breakfasts that they've been handing out, because they've been handing out several thousand of those every day. We've had restaurants across the state that are providing takeout meals to people who either order online or call them to order, and they're putting census information in the dinner and lunch orders. So be creative. We have a state that's founded on a very innovative, creative, and entrepreneurial spirit. So we've all got to be brainstorming on what ways we can use to get our message out. And I really appreciate what everybody is doing. And I'll say one final thing, because I know, Mayor, you are working closely with the faith community in New Haven. I hope that our faith-based communities will use the virtual pulpit, if you will, to get the message out.
There's some good suggestions there that I think we could learn from. So thank you for sharing those. And I know that our Complete Counts Committee has been working really hard in New Haven to get the word out via email and social media as well. And we're really grateful to them. I don't know if Keith or Aisha, do you have anything you'd like to add, or should we open it up to questions?
Well, I just want to underline what you said there, Mayor. Because our Complete Count Committee has been terrific, working really, really hard. We've been exploring a number of many of the creative options that the Lieutenant Governor just identified. You may know that I've been badgering your staff recently about getting calls out to households. I don't know if that's possible, but we really want to sort of turn the spotlight on the harder to count neighborhoods in New Haven, because even though we're doing pretty well in terms of response rate overall, there is still a little bit of a gap when it comes to the communities that are not online, don't have as much internet access. So we're really trying to zero in on those communities.
Keith, can I say a couple words about sort of what the timeline is and what the options are? Because we know that research that NALEO, which is a Latino leadership organization, has said that Black and Brown communities prefer to complete the census on paper. So I wanted to mention that because in the beginning of April, the United States Census Bureau will send to every household in Connecticut that has not yet completed the census online or by telephone a paper form. So that paper form will be in your mailbox by mid-April. So I'd like to point this out. Right now, 37.6% of the state's households have completed the census. And that's really 37% of the households that are ahead of where we were last census in 2010, because in 2010, we didn't have phone response or online response available to us. The census started literally in April. So I like to think we're ahead of the game, but we can't stop, Keith. You're so right. And so for people who feel more comfortable filling out the paper form, know that that's coming in April. I know a lot of seniors may prefer to fill it out over the phone. So you can call the 800 number. That is available as well. And if you speak Spanish, if you go online, or if you call the 800 number, you can complete the census in Spanish or in many other languages, either on the phone or online. So I wanted to get that in there. And the deadline is August 20th, but the more we do now, the better. And I would say, Mayor, the sort of potential silver lining to this cloud of COVID-19 is a lot of people are at home. So now's a really good opportunity to focus on doing something that will help your family, that will help your community, and that will help our state.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to also just acknowledge our partners in this on the Complete Counts Committee, in particular the Community Foundation, and Carolina is started out with our department, but she's been working through the Community Foundation on the Complete Counts, and we really have an all-star Complete Counts Committee. So I just wanted to put a shout out to them and all their hard work that they've been doing.
Can I talk for a minute about some of the work that's been going on in New Haven?
Sure.
So we realize that our first priority right now is to make sure people are fed and supported. So our Complete Count group and some of our grantees with the Community Foundation got together to collaborate and contribute to mutual aid efforts with food distribution. And we have distributed our census informational postcards with lots of food distribution. So they're being given out now with meals at the Downtown Evening Soup Kitchen. The Fairhaven Community Health Clinic is giving out food, and there will be census information with that as well as a handful of other groups. We have been partnering with the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Group and Reverend Abraham Hernandez, and there were over 100 pastors on a phone call this past week that got the information about how to talk to parishioners about the 2020 census. So we're really happy that so many groups are working with us to get the word out. And there's a lot more on the way. We just released a bunch of graphics as well. So now we have one of those Facebook profile picture frames that you can add to show that you want to get out the message, that don't let them count you out. So there's a lot more coming. So if anybody is interested in keeping updated, make sure you follow our Facebook group, Census 2020 Greater New Haven Counts.
And I just want to say thank you, Carolina, and the Community Foundation of New Haven, and the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, and Fairfield County Foundation for Giving. There are so many nonprofits work together, and they've contributed together $500,000 to the census efforts across the state, particularly in hard to count areas like New Haven. And the state of Connecticut matched that funding with an additional $500,000. And with our state funding, we were able to leverage another $130,000 that is specifically for the hard to count children's population in our state. That 0 to 5 age group is the age group that is most likely not to be counted. And so the work that the Community Foundation is doing is so important, and the governor and I really appreciate your partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Carolina, did you want to open it up to any questions that might come in from the Facebook or?
Yes, so if anybody is watching right now on Facebook Live, you're welcome to post a question in the chat. And I guess we'll give it a couple minutes to see if any questions come in.
And Mayor, I just wanted to highlight a couple of issues that we know hard to count communities like New Haven face. And in fact, we had a statewide summit at Gateway in New Haven to talk about how to overcome some of these issues. But we know that one issue is that you in New Haven have a pretty sizable undocumented community, and we don't want anyone to be afraid to come forward and complete this census regardless of citizenship status. People need to know that completing the census is safe, and and that information is kept confidential by the federal government. And so ICE, Homeland Security, any of the state, federal, or local law enforcement agencies can't use it. And people may not be aware of that. So I wanted to make sure that everyone understands that it's very safe to fill out the census, and it's really, really important. And I think you can sort of demystify what the questions are, because the questions are very simple. It took me 8 minutes to fill it out for my family. We have 3 people in my house. And the questions were very simple. How many people live in your household as of April 1st? What are the ages of each of those people? And do you own or rent your home? And that's it. So it's very simple. So I think some people may be concerned that there is other kinds of personal information, citizenship status that will be asked. It won't. It's just how many people in your house, what are their ages, and do you rent or own your home? So it'll be very quick to fill out. And if anyone asks you for your social security number, your political party, your bank account, your credit card, your debit card, any financial information, you know that's a scam.
Yeah, I think that until people actually start to fill out the form, they don't realize, so they have a lot of questions about what it might look like. And so it's important for people to understand beforehand that there's minimal information, but it's important. It's so critical that they fill it out. Having knocked on a lot of doors in New Haven, it's hard to track people down. And so having people be proactive on their own is something that's so critical. I was just looking at, I don't know if while we're waiting for a sec, I was going to share my screen. There's this cool thing on the Census webpage about how we're doing compared to the nation. And we're a little bit ahead of the nation here as far as our response rate. But we still have some work to do. You can look at the nation as a whole, and it looks like some of the mid states are doing pretty well. See these lighter ones here are doing a little bit better. 43% in Minnesota, but then a lot of the rest, we're sort of on track with the rest of the nation. So we've got to shoot for the middle of the US as far as our competition goes to see if we can get our numbers up. Carolina, were there any questions that came in?
Oh,
Yes.
it looks like, go ahead.
Yes, so Stacy Davis said, "Thank you, City of New Haven team, for your census efforts. Question, how do you determine who counts in your household?"
Well, I'll take that one. So it's whoever is living in your household on April 1st. So I will tell you that if the COVID-19 crisis hadn't happened and you had a college student who was living in another state, you should not count the college student, even though they might be home right now because they were sent home from their college back to Connecticut. That's kind of a special case. So college students who regularly live most of the year on a college campus somewhere else don't get counted in your home. Everyone else does. If you have grandchildren, children that are anywhere from 0 through high school, or they're college, but they commute to college and live in your home. Any friends that are staying in your home over the long term, they get counted right in your household.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor. That was a great answer. There are no more questions in the chat box for now. So I think we're ready to wrap up unless anybody has any last things they'd like to say.
So I would just say that if you haven't gone online already, please do. If you're comfortable doing that, you can also call the Federal Census Bureau. They have an 800 number and you can complete that. If you're most comfortable filling it out on paper, watch for that in the next week or two. It will be in your mailbox.
Great,
Wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you
And
so much.
we had another question come in as well.
Okay.
Sean Hardy asks, will the census information go to your PO box or just mailing address?
So the census forms are not delivered to PO boxes. They're delivered to your place of residence. And Sean brings up a good point because in many urban areas where people get their mail at PO boxes, there would actually be census workers who are hand delivering census forms to addresses in either very rural or very urban areas. And the Census Bureau had to stop that in March due to the COVID-19 crisis. And right now the Census Bureau is slated to begin their door-to-door enumerating activities starting on May 28th. And hopefully they'll be able to do that at the end of May because we'll be beyond this crisis. Or we'll just have to watch and see how the schedule changes. So if you get to the end of April and you haven't had a form delivered to your mailbox or home, I'd suggest that you call the 800 number or go online.
Glad you're here, Lieutenant Governor, to answer these questions so thoroughly.
These are some really good questions, and you've got some very astute listeners here.
So it doesn't look like we have any more questions, Carolina. So
thanks everyone for joining. Keep up
Thanks,
the good
Paul.
work, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you so
both.
much, Mayor. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, team.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, take care.
Thank you.